Okay, we're alive. And we're doing some chess puzzles. This is a puzzle rush survival on chess.com. So we start with the usual. This is a back rank mate. So the king has no escape squares. And they have no interposition or anything. Here it's the same theme, only the rook is protected by the queen, but we have two attackers. So again, the king can't escape. So we just go there. This is basically the same theme, only now the king is in the corner. So only these two squares need to be covered, and they are covered. We control this square, and then this other one is occupied by one of our opponent's pawns. Of course, they can interpose, but this interposition is completely useless because this rook is not defended by anything when it interposes there. If there were a bishop, for instance, over here, then we would only be winning this rook. Same thing. This time we go to this square, and normally the king would be able to capture, but we have two rooks, so we defend. The rooks defend each other, and since the rook here will be defended, then this square is covered by the rooks themselves. Here, let's see. So here we have, again, this is the same theme of the back rank mate, but in a slightly different way. Like the theme of the back rank mate can be on the back rank, or it can be on the edge of the board. So it can be to, sorry about that, I accidentally hovered over the chess.com logo, so it was showing like my notifications or something. So it's the same theme of the back rank checkmate, whether the king is over here or whether the king is here or here. Like on any of these, it can happen. So in this case, this square is controlled by our king. Then this square is occupied by one of our pawns, which is defended by this one. Actually, I mean, the fact that it's occupied by one of our pawns doesn't matter. What matters is that this one is controlling that square. So this pawn controls this square, and this square will be controlled by our rook. It's already controlled by our rook, but once we deliver the mate over here, it will be controlled by our rook. And the rook will be protected by this pawn. Obviously very important, otherwise the king would be able to just capture it. And it would be a free piece in that case. But same theme, so the king has no escape squares outside of the edge. In this case, the edge is this one. And so we go here. By the way, where's my chat here? See, chat. There. Wait a second, I haven't pulled the chat yet. So there it is. So I can see the chat now, and nobody has chatted. So okay, so let's see, another puzzle. Of course, these puzzles are very low rated. At the beginning, we were just on puzzle number 5. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, you can see that. So here, what do we have? So we have this check. First of all, you always look for checks. I mean, usually you look for checks. Actually, you look for forcing moves in whatever order, basically. But if you want to be very systematic about it, which is recommended if you're a beginner intermediate player, then like me, then you have to go checks, captures, and threats. That's the order of priorities of what's more forcing. So the checks, we have this one, which looks really powerful. It looks like we are delivering mate. Like they can't interpose anything. Yeah, I mean it's mate. They can't interpose anything. When we go here, we have this other bishop over here, which is very important, and we have the rook controlling all these squares. Apart from that, this pawn covers the other escape square that the king would otherwise have. So the king can't go anywhere, absolutely, like here, all covered after we do this. And then we have to use the what Coach Dane from chess.com likes calling, what was it? King. Oh, I don't remember what he calls it, but he likes calling it by some mnemonic. But the point is, when there is a check, you have 3 ways of escaping the check. You can either move the king, you can interpose a piece, or you can capture the piece that's attacking the king. So in this case, when we check over here, the bishop can't be captured by anything, and also there's nothing that black can interpose. Like on this square, which is the square between the bishop and the king, they can't interpose anything. And they can also not move because of what we already looked at. So that's checkmate. Now here, well, first thing that, even though, I mean, if you want to be systematic, the first thing to look for is checks. But I mean, the first thing that caught my eye is that we have this other forcing move, which is just taking. So taking back here would be the most immediate move if you're playing a fast-paced game. But I mean, usually you have to. That's a common mistake, like seeing, oh, I can just take back, and then you just take back, and you're. In this case, we would be even down material because I mean, it's easy to see that after we capture over here, we are down at least a minor piece. We even have less pawns than our opponent, but the first thing that strikes me is that we're down a minor piece. Anyway, so let's go over the forcing moves. Let's be systematic now. So checks, we don't have any checks whatsoever. This game, we can't check it in any way. Captures, we have this capture, which only regains a piece. It doesn't do anything else, and it leaves us in a position where we're basically losing. So we have that. And then what other capture do we have? We have this capture, which just gives up a queen, so you can take either both ways. And we have what other capture? This capture. This capture over here, we have it. And again, it just blunders a piece. So none of those captures are any good. Then what do we proceed with in that case? Well, in that case, we go with the threats. So for threats, we have a very obvious one. I mean, if you're slightly, experienced in the sense of having played a couple of, hundreds of games of chess, you probably are familiar with this pattern. So we can go over here with a queen, and then we are threatening a very basic checkmate. Now, once we go there, what can black do about it? If we go over here, then first of all, we are cutting off the black king, so it can't just try to somehow escape there, which would be still hard because there's this rook over here and our bishop covers this square, so even if the king could go over here, there's no prospect of escaping anywhere because this is covered. Now, what else can they do? Can they try to do? The king also can't go over here and can't go to any of these squares. I mean, because, well, first of all, the queen from here controls that square, but apart from that, there's there are pieces of the opponent obstructing the king, which is sort of what we saw before with the back rank checkmate. So we go over here, then the king is completely paralyzed, immobile. Can black do something to somehow be able to defend against the threat? No, they can't do anything. Like, they can't run with the king, and they can't bring anything to the defense of that square. Like, if this pawn weren't here, for instance, then black would be able to do something like this or like this, and then they would be controlling that, right? But in this case, this pawn is really annoying for black. It interferes. Like, this configuration of pawns is interfering with their defense of the king. Usually when you have a configuration of pawns like this one, when you have this around your king, you want to have a bishop over here. The common thing is to have a bishop fianchettoed over here, and then it acts both as an attacker on the long diagonal, and it also serves defensive purposes. In this case, black's bishop is over here, and then they have this pawn structure where the dark squares around the king are completely weak. So they get mated. Now here we have a very classic checkmate in one. So the first, there are various checks, but let's go with another check that doesn't really work. So there's this check, for instance. This check, okay, wins a pawn, yeah. But the king just goes over here, and the game goes on, even though it is not looking very nice for white when they have to play this sort of pawn cloud situation over here. But I mean configuration. But still, like, when you see a good move, look for something better. That's another sort of rule of chess, something that was said by some master in the past, or some really advanced player. I don't remember who it was that said that, but yeah, very. So sorry about that, but the point is, yeah, if you find a good move, look for better. Now, what other checks do we have? We have this check. Well, this check is actually even worse than the first one. Like this one, we are just the opponent just blocks with something like knight, bishop, whatever, and we're not achieving anything. Like this is a very common mistake, giving these random checks to the king. Very common beginner mistake. But yeah, the answer is this mate. So we give this check, and the queen is protected by the bishop, and this square is unavailable for the king. This square is controlled by the queen. All of this is controlled by the queen, and obviously the queen is giving a check, so it's hitting the king over there. And yeah, if this queen weren't here, then the king would be able to go over there, where they still would be a little bit suspicious, but well, they would survive at least for a couple of moves. Now this one, we have a checkmate over there. Now I'm going to go a little bit faster so that they don't stop and make everyone super bored. We have checkmate over here. This is check and mate. The king has no escape squares, and the queen. This is what's called a battery of queen and bishop. The queen and bishop board together, and they deliver the mate. Now here we have another interesting pattern. This is the same pattern. This is back rank checkmate also, but in a slightly different way. Here we first give this check, where we are protected by the rook, and then the king only can go over there. Once the king goes over here, then we will sack our queen. We will sacrifice the queen over here, the most powerful piece that we have. We will sacrifice it, because after the rook recaptures, we deliver checkmate over here. So it's the same back rank checkmate, but this time we have to prepare it by first forcing the king to go into the corner, where he will have no escape squares when we deliver the mate at the end. This is the same pattern again. We go like this. King goes to the corner, sacrifice queen, deliver back rank checkmate. And once more, they want to really drive the point home. We have the same pattern. And by the way, right now it looks. I mean, I'm giving this instructional rundown of the position, but later it will be instructional in the sense that I will tell you my thought process and how I approach puzzles, but it will not be instructive in the sense that I will just tell you, oh, this is a solution, because I will not know the solution like later on. But we have to go through a bunch of puzzles that are very beginner level, so they are really easy for me to solve. So this is another mate, sort of back rank mate. In this case, it's the bishop that's covering this. So we go over here with the queen. We give this check. And every interposition that white has is completely useless with just take everything. The bishop can try to come over here, but we just go over there with the queen protected by the bishop. So it's again sort of like back rank checkmate, only this time it's one of our pieces that's controlling this. And also we need to control that, because otherwise the bishop would interpose. If this bishop weren't here, and we could just let's say this pawn were here, so that we would look at consider the back rank checkmate possibilities, but we didn't have a, well, even if our bishop is here, let's say the pawn is over here, we go with this check, and then they interpose the bishop, and that's it. We can't take because they take our queen, and that's no good. But in this case, the bishop controls all of that. So okay, here we have first check that I see when I look at this, and it might be the only check that we have. Actually, I think it's the only check that, yeah, it's the only check that we have. So this one, check. The king has to go over here, because notice that the knight is protecting, covering all of those squares. So the king has to go over here. Then from there, let's say that we continue like this. This seems like the most logical continuation. We go here with another check. Then the king has to go here again. So we start a king walk, which is usually a good thing. Like when you start making your opponent's king run around the board, that tends to be good. It doesn't have to be good, but in like the vast majority of cases, it's a good thing. So we go over here, king goes here, we go over there, king has to go here. Also, when you find these moves, this sequence that's very, very forcing, where there's only one move for the opponent, then it's easier to calculate down the line a little bit. Like here, it's only move, boom, only move, boom, only move. And after that, we can at the very least take this pawn. And let me tell you something. After we take this pawn, it's a check. I mean, obviously, we can take this pawn because it's with check. Otherwise, like, hello. But we take this pawn with check, and the king can't go anywhere because we have the pawn over here. All of this is covered by the opponent. The opponent's pieces. The knight is covered. Well, it doesn't matter that the knight covers this, because the queen from here also covers that. So the king is completely stuck. Like there are pieces here. Well, in the knight also covers that. But well, this piece doesn't matter. Sorry. Like the king will be here. Like, I have to visualize like the future position here. We are talking about that. Sorry, here. So the king would be over here. Like, with the king over here, then with the enemy king over here, then this would be covered by the queen. Then this also would be covered by the queen. This would be controlled by the queen, but I mean there's a piece, but anyway, controlled by the queen as well. And here, over here, there is a piece, and over there we are controlling with the pawn, very important. And over here, there are pieces of the opponent. So yeah, the king would have nowhere to go. So we follow the sequence and deliver the mate. Now, here is a very instructive way to win a piece. It's very, very common. So we go over here, we give this check, and loose pieces drop off. That's another saying in the world of chess. Another instructive saying. This is a loose piece. It doesn't have any defenders. So usually try to keep your pieces as protected as possible. I mean, not as protected as possible, but I mean, try to have at least like one more defender than there are attackers on this piece at the moment. And so here we give this check. and we are threatening to win this bishop. And there's actually no good solution here for white, because this square where the knight could go, blocking the check and defending the bishop, which is a very common way of defending against such a tactic. This square is not protected by a pawn, because this pawn already got pushed. I mean, it's not protected by any piece, because if it were protected by any piece, then that would be no good for the queen to take it. But the point is, if this knight blocks over here, then the queen just takes the knight. Like, it doesn't take the bishop, because otherwise you lose a queen, but it takes the knight, and we're still winning a piece. In fact, after that, then we're even threatening to win this one, but of course white would block with a dark squared bishop. And then we would have to escape, actually, which is interesting. Because obviously this diagonal would be completely covered, so we couldn't escape that way. And all of this is completely covered, so gotta be careful when you're grabbing stuff. But in this case, like, obviously the puzzle will end before that. But I mean, after this and this, actually we have to think about how to get out of there. Like, if the bishop goes over here, we can perhaps go over there. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that in this particular case, we actually have... it's not so easy to escape. Like, once we go over here, then let's say the bishop the bishop can't go back because we take the rook. So yeah, that's it. We would go like over here. This knight wouldn't be here anymore, so we would go like here, something like. But we would eventually get out of there. But that's not the purpose of the puzzle. The puzzle will end before that. So the knight doesn't even block because it's completely useless. So we just take the bishop. White to move in this position. So we have, let's see. We're about to get mated, by the way. This is checkmate, this is checkmate, protected by the rook. So always keep in mind your opponent's threats as well as your own. But it's, fortunately for us, it's white to move, so we are not mated at the moment. Let's see. We have this check. We have this check. Then the king has to go over there. There's no interposition. Nothing can capture the bishop over there. King has to go over here. Then we have this, which is a way to back rank checkmate with the queen. Like, if this were a rook, I mean, if a rook could land over here when the king is here, then the king would simply go there. But if it's a queen, the queen also covers diagonally. So it covers that escape square from the king as well. So this is mate. White to move in this one. Let me see. We first of all have this check, where we have the rooks defending against each other. This rook covers all of this. Like, usually when the king is in the middle, that's not a good sign for the one with the king in the middle, right? So yeah, we deliver checkmate like this. We have both rooks protecting each other, and these two squares are protected by our pawn, and this square is occupied by one of the opponent's pieces. Now here we have sort of a full mate situation, except it's not mate because the king goes over here. Wait, and actually they can go over here. Never mind, it's not like the same situation. What am I saying? So we can give this check. Then if the opponent goes over here, then they are losing a rook to this tactic that you may have seen before, where the queen is checking and at the same time staring at the undefended rook in the corner. However, our opponent can simply go over here. In that case, we still have this check, and actually we do not need to look any further than that. Like, that is already bad enough for our opponent. Like, king will have to go over here, then we might bring our bishop, start something. We can do lots of things after that. At the very least, we're grabbing like this pawn, this one. And the king is going to look very suspicious in the middle. But They just allow us to grab the rook. So okay. This one, let's see. We are black this time. So we have a queen. They don't have a queen. Let's see. This is a check and a capture, so very forcing move. And actually, we don't have many other interesting checks to begin with. So this probably how to proceed. Takes. Then king obviously has to go over here, only move. Then where do we go? Like, oh, we can go here. Check. But this is protected by the bishop, so we're not forking it. We go check. Oh wait, we're in check. What am I saying? Like, yeah, that's the first. That's the first thing to look at. Actually, the first thing to look at when you're in a puzzle is if you're in check, because otherwise you might be thinking about lots of things, and then you will realize that you're the one that has to defend. So okay, it makes sense because I wasn't finding anything to attack. So actually, yeah, it's a defensive puzzle. So we have to move properly here so that we don't get mated or lose material. Like right now, this bishop moved, so there's a discovery on our king, and then this also discovered another thing. There's a double discovery. Discovery on the king and discovery on this rook. And we can't go over here to defend with our king because this is completely controlled. So that would be illegal. We couldn't even try to go there. So what are our options? So first of all, this is the checking piece. So you can capture the checking piece? No, you can't. I mean, can you? No. We can't capture that. We can interpose. There's an interposition, and it loses the rook with another check. So might not be the best interposition that we have, but it is an interposition. Then do we have? What else do we have apart from that? We can move. We can move here, which would be sort of dreadful after this check, I guess. Like they take that with check, then we have to move back here, then we get checked again, then we, I don't know, go here and get checked once more, and like things are not good looking very good in that situation. So for now, let's not analyze what happens if that, which looks dreadful. So we probably have to go here by discarding all the other options. But let's see. I mean, after this, obviously they are grabbing a rook. So what happens after they grab the rook? We go over here with check, for instance, following the forcing moves. Because notice that after that, actually, you may think, oh, we have a queen, so we're up material, but we're not. Actually, 2 rooks are in general better than a queen. I mean, it's 10 points of material versus 9, and also they are no, they don't have an extra pawn. They have the same number of pawns. But yeah, 2 rooks can definitely be powerful than more powerful than a queen. They often are. So this check, although in blitz you might actually prefer to have the queen. Like many times I have lost blitz games by going for the good trade of getting my 2 rooks in exchange for a queen, and then the opponent is able to find lots of I mean, to kill a lot of time and present a lot of threats with the queen. But yeah, blitz is like a different beast. Same as bullet. Well, bullet even worse. Let's see. So going back to the topic at hand, we go over here. They take. Then we have this check. They only have 1 move, so it's always good to look at the super forcing moves. They go over there, and after that we can give this other check, at the very least. And after this check, we are taking this bishop. So we are ending up with one queen versus one queen and a pawn, because we are going to capture this pawn in that sequence. One queen, a pawn, and a bishop for 2 rooks. So yeah, that's a very, very good situation for us material wise. So all other things considered, we should definitely go for that. I mean, in that line works in our favor. Can they do anything else? Like after we go, sorry, we didn't go there. After we go here, can they do anything else to us? Like checks, very important to look for checks for our opponents as well. So check over here, yeah, good luck. We just take this rook. And then there's no follow-up with checks. Like this check, yeah, we also gobble that up and we also protect the rook. So there's nothing that we need to be scared of here. We just go over there, and now we go here, and we are going to take the bishop, but we don't have to continue because actually there were multiple winning moves at that point probably. White to move. Okay, so we have checkmate in 1 again. This configuration might not be as usual as some others, at least for me. So we give a check over here with a rook, protected by this pawn, and that covers this square and this square, and also of course all of that, so this square as well. Then and the rook can't be captured. Nothing can interpose because the rook is right next to the king, so we don't have to even look for opponent's interpositions, like the pieces adjacent to the king. Like it's impossible that there's an interposition. The rook can't be captured, and this square is controlled by our pawn. This square is controlled by our king, and this square is controlled by our other pawn. And these 2 squares are occupied by opponent's pieces. So because of all of that, this is made. Now here we have another checkmating pattern. We go over here, we check. We have rook and queen on the 7th rank, which is extremely dreadful for the opponent. And after the king goes here, only move. Then we just deliver checkmate over there. Notice that we can't try to deliver checkmate over here because there's a bishop covering that, so that would just give up the queen. Okay, another puzzle, let's see. So our opponent is threatening checkmate here. This bishop is pinned to the king by the queen. And with these 2 pieces, they are threatening mate. But we are not in check, so actually we are allowed to start our own thing against the opponent's king, if useful. So we have this check, and it might be the only check that we have actually. Yeah, it is. So check over here. There are no interpositions. Well, yeah, there's one interposition, and an important one. This interposition. The rook would be able to interpose like this. But then we're not, they are not threatening mate anymore, so that's sort of good. So we check over here. If rook interposes, we can at the very least grab this pawn, and we are offering a trade of queens, and there's no checkmate for in the horizon against us anymore. So we would be defending against the threats at least. Like in case it's a defensive puzzle, then that might just work. But we have to look at the other options, like they don't have to block with a rook. Like, I mean, to me, this and this and this is okay. Like, I mean, if this were a real game, like I would say, okay, that line looks fine. Like, I mean, we're getting a one pawn back because, I mean, we have currently we have one less pawn than our opponent. But, well, we have one less pawn, but we have a rook that they don't have. Like, we have an extra rook for we have a rook for a pawn. So basically, this is a defensive puzzle. We're about to get mated. So how do we deal with this? And you might say something like, well, yeah, you can't even say something like that. Like I was going to say, you can say something about using one of these rooks, but actually, like this would first of all be a free rook. But second of all, what I wanted to point out is that even if this over here were protected, let's say we had a bishop over here, so you might think, oh, we can just go here, and this can be a way to defend this point, but no, because I mean this rook shielding, and then the one that delivers a queen is the checkmate is a queen, and it will be shielded from this rook over here by this rook, if this could be protected like by a bishop. I mean, in this case it's not even the case, so we don't even need to consider that. But the point is, yeah, we have nothing that we can do to solve this scenario except going for counterplay against this king. There's a very common thing that can happen when you're playing your own games. So, very important concept. You go over here, check. I mean, it's also the counterplay that people find most intuitively as well. The counterplay that involves going with the queen against the king. That's like the most basic kind of attack that one learns in chess. Like you don't even need anyone to teach you that. Like when it's like the first attempt any beginner does at attacking. Like they just go, oh, queen, powerful piece, let's go. I mean, can move, sideways, diagonal, everywhere. And but yeah, that's the right thing to do in this case. Like check over here again. If rook interposes, mate is no longer a thing. We just capture this pawn. We are offering a trade of queens, and life is good. Now, I mean, and importantly also, we are not just offering the trade of queens. If they reject the trade of queens, at the very least, we are able to, like, we finally got our queen to connect with all of this, so that it can come to the defense of our king if needed. But of course, with the rook over here, it wouldn't be necessary right now. But yeah, well, actually, kind of would, yeah, because I mean, otherwise, this is also a thing. But yeah, but the point is, our queen can come to the defense. Now, we have to consider the other options. Like, don't consider just the option where the opponent does what you want them to do. Like. Here, if I go here, if they go there, yeah, okay, situation solved, problem solved. But they don't have to do that. They can actually go here, here, or here. So after this, let's say they go, I don't know, here. Then what are we doing? Well, we can bring this rook with check to begin with. And that would be kind of, actually, we can even force the trade of queens immediately. But I mean, even more devastating might be to just give this check with the rook, so the king has to go forward, and then we can do a discovery with the rook, wherever the king goes. Because if let's say here the king goes to this rank over here, then after that, if we bring the rook, notice that we're doing like the ladder mate pattern. I mean, it's not mate, but I mean, it's the same as in the ladder mate. It's the ladder, this staircase pattern, where the king can't go back because the queen is covering that. So the king has to go forward. And once the king goes forward, then we have this beautiful idea of going with this rook, checking the king and giving up the rook. But we are discovering the attack on the queen because this queen is undefended right now. So after we do this and this, we are actually threatening a discovery with our rook to get the opponent's queen, and that's just completely resignable for our opponent at that point. Like they lose a queen on top of everything else that they go from being down a rook to being down a queen, like a full queen. It's dreadful. Like they can't do anything at that point. So that being analyzed, now we know that this move is completely safe from everything, and we can play it. So there you go. They go there. Of course, that was better than the situation where they are losing the queen. Let's go for another. let's see. So we have several things going on here. First thing that's going on that I would tell you is that this right now would be checkmate. Like if our opponent had no, wait, it wouldn't be checkmate because we would be able to interpose our queen. So, but it would be dreadful. It would be losing to. We don't want to end in this position where we are getting we're giving up our queen for a rook. So yeah, there's that. And then what else is there? We are controlling a lot of squares around the opponent's king. So we do have that. And we have this that's open towards the king. There's no pawn here. Like usually when you castle, it's because you want to protect your king with a pawn cover, although it can work against you when there's a back rank checkmate possibility like we looked at in other examples. But here that's not a thing, but the king is quite open because it lost the cover. So we can go here, give this check. And then that's where all this control comes into play. The king can only go there. There's no interposition whatsoever. King can only go there. And after that, we just deliver checkmate like this. So, boom, boom. Now here we have this check protected by the rook. And after that, even though this rook is pinned, it's absolutely pinned to the king. Like probably what the black thought about here in the game was, let's pin this rook, and we have two attackers on the rook at the same time. So woof, we're going to cause some damage here. But the rook, even though it can't move, an absolutely pinned piece can still defend another piece when giving check. So we can give check here, protected by the pinned rook. And after that, the king has to go over here. So again, easy calculation in that sense. And of course, we shouldn't try to do something like give this check thinking, oh, we trade the queens and I'm up a rook, because the rook is still pinned. So if you went over here, that would be a free queen. A free queen, and the game would be completely over, but not in the way that you want it to be over. So here, then there. And, well, first of all, the puzzle might just end there, because we have... we are up material. We're doing perfectly fine here. We're not getting mated or anything, so we're doing all right. But I mean, there has to be something more. Let's see. Oh, here. Actually, we're not even up material, I think, at the end of all that. Man, yeah, we have to check it. I mean, because we're going to lose this rook for the bishop. So I don't know. Like, I mean, our pawn here is going to be weak. I don't know what's the evaluation after that. But I mean, it looks like about equal. I would say about even. Like, could go either way. I mean, from a very vague and amateurish evaluation of the position. So, but that's of no concern. I mean, here we have to look at just very, very tangible things in these puzzles, especially when we are at the low-rated puzzles like this one. I mean, this is already a little bit high-rated than before, but not really high-rated. This kind of puzzle. Like it's if you want to know the rating of this, we are around the 1200s here. So, check goes here. Then check again. I mean, that's the other promising check that we have, because everything else, and the queen just takes our queen. So check over here, and looky look. After we give this check, it's a fork. Yes. So check, only move, check, fork. We get the bishop, and then we are up a rook. We're up a rook, and we obviously are winning after that. So that is the solution. let's see. What do we have here? Well, first of all, we have this pawn, we have this bishop, so we have some stuff around the king, which is nice. We could, for instance, take here, and sorry, I'm not doing this in a systematic way, but I mean, again, if you want to be systematic about it, think about checks first, then captures, then threats. You can be systematic like this. But in practical play, you probably will not go over them systematically, because also you will not have the time, depending on which time control you're playing, of course. If you're playing daily, then you absolutely have the time and should like run the checklist every move for absolutely everything that's forcing, and go down the line like as much as you can calculate, like even grab a paper, a pen, and start calculating like. But well, you can even set it up on the board and start making moves. I mean, that's if you want to play daily properly, that would probably be the way. But I mean, I'm not really a daily player. I have played some daily, but I mean, not that much. And I didn't grab a notebook or anything. I did set up the positions on the board sometimes, though. Not many times, but a few times. I mean, on the physical board. I mean, not on the board here. I mean, no analysis or anything like that. You're not allowed to do analysis with an engine while you're playing even daily chess. I believe you're allowed to like check opening books or things like that. I think so. I'm not completely sure about that, but I do think so. That at least when they were doing like daily tournaments, which I didn't participate in, they were the rules included something like that. Like you could still check like opening books or something like that. But anyway, I don't know why I started talking about daily. Like. Yeah, because I was talking about the checklist. Sorry to go on a tangent line. So in general, I mean, you're going to go not systematically, but more like intuitively, which might not be great below master level, and even at master level might not be so great if you're not really strong. Like I mean, obviously any master is strong, but there's a difference between a candidate master and a grandmaster, for instance. Pretty big difference. Which we might not be able to perceive because of our rating level, but I mean, like the definitely you can perceive it by the results when they encounter one another, or even when you see them analyzing. So we have this check, but it doesn't seem to lead anywhere after this. But we can shift the things. Like I mean, if we give this check. Then after this, we would like to have like after this check, we would have to like have the queen like over here, for instance, so that it covers that square, and then that's mate. But we can reverse the order of the moves, and then we can start like this. Boom, we grab that. It's a capture, and it's also a threat. We are threatening mate, and this mate. So we're threatening two kinds of mates. And frankly speaking, black can't really defend against both. I think what they have to do is give up the queen over here if they don't want to get mated immediately, because the thing is, let's say they want to cover this square from checkmate, but we don't just have the queen and the bishop, we also have the pawn. So let's say they go over here with a rook to cover that, and that's the square where both pieces were threatening to mate. So you might say, oh, okay, well then there's no checkmate. Yeah, but you go over here with the bishop, you check. The only move is taking with the rook. Then you take with the pawn. Well, not with the pawn. Sorry. Wait, with the pawn would be mate too. Yeah, it would be mate. Like yeah, you can choose between the pawn mate, I believe, and the queen mate. Like queen mate, more easy to see perhaps, but pawn mate in this case will also work. No, it wouldn't work because there's a queen over here. Never mind. So after we go over here, rook goes over there. Yeah, I gotta look at these X-ray sort of defenses. Like I mean, it's not really X-ray, but I mean like the queen is staring at this diagonal. So if we if we took here with a pawn, then the queen would be looking at that since the pawn moved on the same diagonal there. Not easy to see for us low-rated players. So take over here. We cover that. We're threatening checkmate 2 different times. Rook goes over here. Seems like the best way to try and defend. Then after this check, rook has to take. We take with the queen. It's mate. Unfortunate for our opponent that they don't have an escape there. So we take over here. We're threatening mate 2 different ways. And what else can they try to do? Let's say they try to defend like, well, I mean, yeah, it wouldn't make any sense whatsoever to try to defend this, sideways, because you can take that like a million different ways, first of all. But what I wanted to show you was that it was still mate. Again, because of this shielding that we talked about before. Like if a rook were able to like land here, for instance, if there were a bishop controlling that square. So they wanted to defend like sideways after you do this. They can't because you go here with a bishop and the queen shields the bishop. Then that's checkmate because the queen controls this. So anyway, this is mate. I mean, it's going to be mate on the next turn because of everything that we've talked about. White to move over here. Okay, well, we have mate in 1, I believe. No, sorry. Not in 1. Or do we? Wait. It is mate in 1. Check. And there's nothing, right? Like, this is all covered. This is covered. This is controlled. So it's covered in a way. I mean, it's occupied by your opponent, not controlled. Occupied by your opponent. So, can't go over here. This is controlled. This is controlled. This is controlled, and this is controlled. Well, all for this I already said. So yeah, this is mate. Okay. We have checkmate here too. Like checkmate with the bishop. Boom. This check, and the pawn protects the bishop. Again, the pawn is pinned, although relatively pinned. This is not an absolute pin, but I mean, even more so. Relatively pinned pieces are actually can do a lot more than a normally pinned piece, because they can even move, I mean, technically, and allow you to discover whatever you had against the piece behind it. But of course, I mean, even if this were absolutely pinned in some way, there were like a king over here instead of a queen, then again, the pinned piece can definitely support another piece that's giving a check. So check and mate, because the king simply suffocated by all of these pseudo friends that it has around. So boom, checkmate. Black to move over here. One day it will happen that they make a blooper that I say to you that okay, this is a checkmate, and then I looked at it wrong, and then it's not going to be made. And that's going to be funny. That's going to be funny. So let's see. Check here, where it's both grabbing a piece and also checking. But grabbing a piece is not doing much for us, because actually we are down a lot of material. I don't need to really do a count to see that we're down a lot of material here. So check. King goes over here, and sort of discovery on the queen, but we can also take this one. So first of all, we can take 2 rooks. So yeah, that is, it's funny that I said that material wasn't going to be the thing here, because yeah, I mean, maybe that's what we're getting here. Yeah, it looks like that's what we're getting, but let's see. Check. First of all, we can take this rook. So this is probably the move. But even taking that rook, I mean, it doesn't look like it does much for our position, because I mean, we're like it doesn't really get us back in the game. I mean, it does something for our position, obviously. I mean, it makes the situation much better to grab 2 rooks. But the point is, the opponent has a knight for the rook and a bunch of pawns. So yeah, and also all these pawns on this side of the board where we don't have any pawns whatsoever. Like, really dangerous. Anyway, check here, and fortunately for us, we have another follow-up. That's not just grabbing the rook. We have this check, which I was looking at before, by the way, while I was talking to you. I was yapping about all this other thing, and meanwhile I was looking at that. So check goes here, check, and the king has no squares because again the friendly pieces are obstructing it everywhere, and also we're covering that. So with the queen, so knight can try to interpose, but yeah, we're just taking that with a bishop, and the queen from here is covering that. So yeah, the king is getting mated, right? Bishop can't be taken. Yeah. So that wasn't the time where the blooper happened. It didn't happen yet. So first of all, we have this check where we're crisscrossing the king. There are no interpositions, and the king can move over here. There's a square where the king can go. After the king goes over here, well, and of course nobody can capture the bishop. So give check. King goes over here, only way to go. And after that, what do we have? Do we have anything? Like... I'm wondering what we can have there. And here, boom, boom. Like we could try go here. In that case, the king would be able to go like there, but also they would be able to interpose here. So it started looking a little bit more interesting. Also, we could start with this check. In that case, we would be sort of forcing the king to go there. Because, I mean, interposition over here, we can take that two different ways. And interposition over here, we can go over here with the queen, for instance. Threatening to go there. Well, threatening, no, I mean, forcing something where we're potentially going there. And maybe with a bishop, because if interposes the queen, then the queen gets pinned to the king. We can go here with a bishop, and yeah, it gets. So this is also a check to consider. This I wouldn't consider so much because it's a way to lose control of the squares. Like usually when you're attacking the king, what you want is to control as much as possible. Like here we're controlling this, so we want to add more control to this. We don't want to lose control by going back here and allowing something like this. So let's see. Check here. King here. And already we're reaching a point where, as you can see, I'm sort of stumbled to find the solution. So now we are at the point where I do have to give it a really big think. This is a 1500 rated puzzle. Check. I mean, it should be like the previous one was 1500, so this should be around 1500 too. So check over here. King goes here. I don't know what to continue with. Like this. Then again, the king can try to escape over there. And they can even interpose here. Well, if interposes here, then we can... Yeah, if we go back here, check, then I don't know, the knight interposes something. Like it's not clear what we're achieving really with all of this. It's not clear at all. So check over here, goes here. We don't even have a rook to bring in because the king is there. So check over here. If it goes over here. I was for a split second I was considering this check, and I mean like, but I mean it was really a split second. It was like no something like this. But anyway, check goes over here. Follow up, I noticed at the beginning, I mean, all these puzzles, even 1500 rated and so on, are basically based on the most forcing sequences ever. Or it's checkmate, capture because of checkmate because of check, all of that. Like, it's not, you don't really have to think so much about the other things. Later, I mean, the puzzles become much more involved. So, but still, I mean, like, I'm sort of stumped for a solution because it's because of my miserable level here. Let's see, check here. Follow up to that. Follow up to that. Well, after we give like this check, if interposes, we can also go here, check. Yeah, I'm not sure we're achieving anything. Like, it's check, and nothing. This is also what happens when you have so many checks available. Like in other situations like this, there were very, very clearly super forcing checks that we had on our hands. But in this case, I mean, there are some options that the opponent has as to how to escape from the checks. And also, there's we have a buffet of follow-ups to choose from. So yeah, this puzzle isn't that easy for me, and it might actually be super easy in the end. But I mean, to begin with, it's not so easy for me. This check I'm kind of discarding, although I shouldn't discard anything at this point. But I mean, the point is, if they go over here, I don't see what is my follow-up there. Like, if at the very least this knight weren't here, then we might arrive here with a check and then continue from there. But that's not the case. So, so I don't think this is a start. What about this start? Check, like I said before. Goes over here. If it goes over here, I have no idea what I do. So probably this check, going back to the beginning, then goes over here and has absolutely no squares to move to. Oh, wow! I looked at the rook. Like this is where I prove my rating. Like I looked at the rook coming over here. If the king weren't here when the king goes there. But I didn't look at the rook coming over here when the king is here. Now, I'll tell you why this happened. This happened because for the rook to be looking at the king over here, this bishop has to move. So I had to see in my mind, okay, there's no bishop anymore because the bishop moved over here. Now the rook can see that. That's sometimes a little bit difficult to see for an amateur. So maybe you can relate. Like here, check. Or maybe not. Maybe you don't relate. But yeah, I know some people definitely can relate to that. I mean, this the common beginner problems. I mean the beginner problems are very common. Like when you have something that is like a flaw in your play, you can be positive that a lot of other players share it with you. So check here and here, and there's no interposition, and that's it. It's over. It's checkmate. The king has absolutely no squares. We have this, everything, and the king is absolutely boxed in, and this is occupied by pieces. So yeah, that's it. And the puzzle just ends on that. Oh, my poor mouse. Still alive. Okay. So now we have, well, first thing that strikes me is that we have this check, which might be mate, because we have this controlling there. So now it's time to check if it's actually mate. Check. And the knight can't be captured. And the king can only move, therefore, I mean, because against knights you can't interpose anything. I mean, there's no interposition against a knight. The knight hits this strange way with its movement, and then its leaping movement, and so therefore the king should move, but the king can't move because there's the bishop. So yeah, that's mate. Like to move over here, we're in check. So we are in check. What are our options? Can we capture this piece? No. Can we interpose something? No. Can we move the king? Well, I mean, frankly, that's the only thing we can do. Otherwise, this would be checkmate. So we can move over here or over here. What's the right one to go to? We have to choose based on our opponent's follow-ups. Like if we go over here, first of all, there's another check. There's this check. So it looks like there's something. But if we go over here, there's something more brutal. Sorry. This. And this is a classic skewer. The king has to move away. It can't defend the queen, because if it were like over here and this pawn weren't here, then the king would be able to go there. And well, actually, even if the pawn is here, like the king would be able to go like here and still remain adjacent to the queen. But the point is, with the king over here, this is a skewer totally after the king moves, and white is picking up the queen, and we might as well resign. So definitely we can't go over there. Therefore, we can, this being a puzzle, we can discard all the other options and say, well, this is the solution 100%, because that's it. I mean, we had two moves, and one of them loses a queen in the game, so it has to be the other one. Now, if this were a real game, you would actually have to not simply discard that move like that. Although you might just, given the circumstances, like how brutal it is to go here, you might just discard it and go here. But let's look at it. Let's see what there is after this. And actually, that method of discarding, even considering, let me say this, even considering how brutal it is that we would lose a queen, might still be worth a consideration to look for, to see if actually you should play this move instead of this one, because if this move resulted in like immediate mate and it would be very easy to find, then maybe you could count on your opponent not finding the skewer, which they probably will find the skewer. But I mean, even though you shouldn't play hope chess, sometimes where all you can have is hope, you just play the move and try to, and just cross your fingers that maybe your opponent doesn't see the threat. Like that's sort of a practical tip from Blitz chess. Now, well, chess in general, I suppose. But I mean, this is clearly the move in the puzzle. Now if this were a real game, let's treat it a little bit like a real game. What does white have after we do go here? Like checks, they can check over here. We can just interpose our queen. They can check over there. We can interpose our queen. So, yeah, it looks like we're okay. Like we're keeping everything together. So we go here, check. Okay, what should we do? We should probably go over here. Like, we have either that or that. Like those are our two options. Either this or this. If we go over here. First of all, we're losing a pawn for no reason. But second of all, it could get slightly worse if they had some sequence that involved something like the sacking of a pawn over here, for instance. Or they just give us this check, and then if we take, then they bring this queen. Something along those lines. So I think interposing with a queen is safest. I'm going to do just that, and it was the wrong one. What did I do? Oh my god, that was bad. Let me check. Let me check again. Let's see. Can you see if I put it like this? Yeah. We're looking at the puzzle from just now. I shouldn't have been lazy and should have actually analyzed the options. So check over here. Our options are go over there or interpose a queen. If we interpose the queen, what happens afterwards? Like, why isn't that the solution? Is there another check or something that I missed? So I'm frankly not seeing anything. We can't take the queen, so that's not it. So what's the problem about this move, or what are we earning if we go this one? Oh, if we go this one, okay, I should have looked at that. We're threatening mate over here. I didn't even look at the threats that we had in this puzzle. Like, this is another thing that has happened during this stream, as you can see. Like, one time where times where we were in check, I wasn't looking at the fact that we were in check, and I was looking at our options just straight up without looking that we were, without seeing that we were in check. That happened in one puzzle. And now I have like sort of the reverse, like we're in check and I'm not considering that we are actually threatening something. So this is not just about escaping, it's about escaping with a threat. If we go over here, then we have no longer this threat. I mean, we have this threat is no longer there. Now if we go over here, for instance, I was looking at like, oh, maybe there's this, but I didn't like calculate down to anything substantial because I thought, why even go there when we can just simply be safe? And yeah, this is sort of safe, although they have these two pawns, which might become something in the future. But I mean, the point is that we're no longer threatening this wonderful mate. If we go over here, we are. And there's no follow-up. This is just nothing. Like this, and yeah, you can just... No, I guess you could just take the pawn, and then if the queen comes checking, then you can go like over here, and there's no follow-up, no other check. So yeah, here, oh yeah, that's what happens. Yeah, you take, then you go over here, and you're completely safe. Goes over there. Oh, okay, well here we have to think about it for a little bit. Like, if let's say we went over here, then there would be this and pick up the rook. So skewer again, so we couldn't get skewer, so we should go there. After this, there might be something like this, and maybe we go... I don't know, this no, because there's a rook. Never mind. So yeah, this, and now they are finally out of checks. So yeah, that puzzle wasn't super easy. That wasn't a super easy puzzle. So we're at 30. I should have thought about this puzzle a little bit more. That was a 1600 rated puzzle. And yeah, it's unfortunate that I got my first miss there, because that means I only can miss one more puzzle before we are out of attempts. I mean, then we will be out of attempts for the last one. Like, I can miss one and continue, and then the second one is just over. I mean, which would be the third miss. Actually, I mean, I can miss 3 times in total. That was one of them. So unfortunate, because yeah, 30 is still a pretty low number. So yeah, I will stop now to eat lunch, and maybe I will stream later. Maybe, I'm not sure. But the rush, the rush survival will still be here. So like, then next time I stream, we can pick up where we left off, which is something really wonderful about doing these puzzles on chess.com, that we can actually pick up where we left off when we're doing survival puzzles. So all right, thanks to whoever tuned in, if anyone, and I'll see you around. Bye.